watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched, and Chair Shots and the Indie Wrestling Gazette. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me today, hailing from Chi-Town, he is the Southside Bruiser Jay Thunder. Jay, thanks for coming on Chat About Some Wrestling, brother. How are you?
I am good. Well, thank you very much for having me. I know you've been talking about this for a while, and I'm happy that we actually had enough time to actually sit here and, chop it up and chat.
Man, I'm super hyped about it. We've crossed paths, like we were saying before we went on the air, but this is something I'm super excited to talk to you about. Deep dive a little bit more into your wrestling career. I always ask the same question. It's always two parts. Like, who is Jay Thunder? Meaning, where did your training start? And also, what wrestling were you exposed to growing up? Like, who did you watch growing up? Who do you take little pieces from? And, like, kind of start painting the picture of how Jay Thunder came to be.
So when it comes down to who Jay Thunder is, pretty much he is the character that I like tried to come up with is someone who doesn't take a lot of crap. Pretty much is a monster. Wants to make sure that he lets it be known that he is the top of the food chain. I'm not trying to be your typical, monster baby face or your monster heel or anything like that. But I just more so kind of want to differ from everybody else. When I was younger, because I started watching wrestling right around the boom of the Attitude Era. So, I started watching wrestling as soon as about before the first episode of SmackDown came out. So I was more likely watching Monday Night Raw, seeing all the, wonderful people, wonderful characters like Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold, like all of those wonderful people. And, with how I'm built as a person, as a big guy, some of those may not work, but people sit here and they say, oh, like for a big guy, you move pretty quickly. So as I got older and started to see all the other wrestlers like the Cassius Ohno / Chris Hero, or the Keith Lees, and even still to this day, like Undertaker, because of the fact that he's still like I think he was like 6'9", and he was able to move like he was a freaking cruiserweight. Every once in a while, he was able to do that. I try to like mix a lot of that stuff in there. I want to be known as a guy that is not a tower. Yeah, I'm a towering figure, but if I need to go, I can go.
Do you feel like having that athleticism kind of gives you an edge in the ring when you're working with some people? Just the sheer fact that you have size, but you also have the agility and athleticism to move your size around.
Well, first and foremost, I'll tell you that it's a challenge. I will say that it's a challenge, but I think it's kind of cool because sometimes you don't realize what you can do until you actually try it and you get in the ring. So, like, I remember one time, when I was training, when I first started my training, no one thought. I think no one was surprised that everyone was surprised that I could do a vertical. Everyone was surprised that I could get up so high, and I was like, to myself, I was like, oh, I actually got up pretty high. So like, it's a challenge, but it's also like a good thing because I feel like, it can, change how people look at me,
Nice. So what about pro wrestling made you go, this is it. This is what I want to do?
Let's see. So just a little bit of like a backstory. I've always wanted to be a wrestler. Always. It's always been something that has been like true to me ever since I started watching back in '99, playing the games, trying to stay, up to date with wrestling. And, as life goes on, I've developed a family. I have two kids. Um, so a little bit about it is that my previous relationship um didn't go as well as I wanted it to, and I got a beautiful daughter out of it. But it was also the relationship that I felt like it was going to be the one, but it didn't happen that way. So I was definitely in a big slump. And one of the things that I said that I was going to do to kind of you know, clear my head is that I wanted to, start wrestling. And oh, excuse me. One of the things that I was scared about was the fact of my age. Because at the time I started, I was about 26, 27. So I was a little bit skeptical and scared because, you know, there are people out here doing this at 21, 20, 19, 18. And, you can't, it's that feeling about what if you're not good enough or what if you're too old. But I just said screw it, and I started doing it, and I've been doing it for 5 years. So I love it. I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it.
So before we got on the air, you and I were talking about some of the work you were doing over the summer and some of the promotions you've worked with. You mentioned CSW, and we
Yeah.
also talked about Northland Pro. Can you kind of talk about those two promotions and kind of the connection between the two of them?
Yes. So Chicago Style Wrestling is my home promotion. It's pretty much where most of our main roster is at, pretty much doing a whole bunch of stuff. We also have most of the time we have like guest appearances as well. Like our last show, we just had Damian Sandow at our show,
Nice.
which was really cool. And then the show before that, if I'm not mistaken, we had I think it was Davey Richards. We had him there. I know a show before that we had Scotty Too Hottie. So it's been fun to see and learn from all of these people, and learn things from them. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Our last show before that we had Carlito. That's who we had.
That's a name, right? I mean, you're talking
The
about some pretty big draws coming through, man.
Yeah, like we literally had our last show, which was, if I'm not mistaken, not this past Friday, but the Friday before that, we had um Damian Sandow, and then the show last month we had Carlito, and the month before that we had Davey Richards, and then the show before that we had Scotty Tutati. So yeah.
Man, when you mentioned Carlito, for the one, all the names you mentioned, big names, big draws, those guys can come through and put butts in your seats. When you mentioned Carlito, for me, it made me pop a little bit because I have a love for the territories. So when you bring him up, it immediately makes think Carlos Colon, and then it goes into the Puerto Rico days,
Yeah.
and it's just a collection. But when you mention, Chicago, and you talk about this wrestling, and these guys come through the locker room with me, and your Carlitos, and your Scotty Two Hotties, and your Sandows, and you have a chance to just listen to and work and see these guys work, and have the opportunity to be a sponge. What is like some of the best parts about working with veterans and like not necessarily stealing, but taking the best parts about their game and helping add it to yours?
So I'll use a good example. We had a seminar when Scotty Too Hottie came, and it was a pretty good seminar. I mean, we didn't get to do too much of like ring work, but it was more so like about advice to the game. Um, and it's just like you one of the things that I've always been taught was you have to look like a star. You have to look like a star. You have to make yourself look different from everybody else. It doesn't matter. You're gonna have a whole bunch of people trying to be in this business, and you have to look different, but you also have to look the part. You got to take care of yourself. Just what always stuck out was look different, be different. You know.
I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration. And coming from the restaurant industry, there's 500 chefs in Nashville. What do I do that made me that one bit different than the other 499 of them? And I feel like that's very true, especially on the independent scene in wrestling, because there's so many hungry guys trying to break through. You have to take that individuality of your game to make you step up. So a lot of guys use the analogy, they take parts of their personality and turn them up to 11. What part of Jay Thunder's everyday life are you turning up to 11 when you step into the rink?
Well, I will say that when it comes down to being on the mic, that is pretty much me. That is pretty much me. Like if I ever have a segment where I'm on the mic or I speak to the people, that's me. I'm not gonna sit here and BS with anybody. I'm gonna say it like it is, and if it needs to be said, it's gonna get said. But once that energy comes in, it's like a whole different like monster. It's literally a whole different monster. It's like, man, it's like turned up to 25. If you give me something to work with, it'll be turned up to 25,
So I know a lot of times when you go from one territory to the other, and you were talking about it before, being a big monster but still keeping human, some like the heel and face aspect of it. Do you have a preference when you get in front of the crowd? Do you prefer to work baby? Do you prefer to work heel?
So when I first started wrestling, I started as a heel. And I got the basis of being a heel, but I felt that I needed to, with my personality, because if you literally, if we're being honest, from sitting here in the chat, I'm a pretty nice guy. Like I'm not like a big asshole or anything like that. So, like being able to be a baby face, being able to be a monster baby face is something that I would want to learn how to do. But being real is fun sometimes too. Being able to, antagonize the crowd and just chastise, and it's fun. Like they always tell you that being a heel is always the fun part.
I was going to ask you. Another one that I've heard is it's a hell of a lot easier to make them hate you than it is to make them love you.
Yes, I'll give you a story right now. So there's this one kid that I don't know how long he's been training, but it's at another promotion that I'm currently working with. He just so happens to be a Packers fan. Now, you know where I am. You know where I am. I'm in Chicago. So if anyone, and this is for everybody that's watching, if you guys don't know the rivalry that it is of the Bears and the Packers, then you don't realize how bad that is. Because not this past show that I just did on Sunday, but the show that I did a month ago, he decided to come out in Green Bay Packer clothes. And it was and you thought that they were gonna like cheer him, but they wound up booing him. And I said, I was like, dude, at this point, you got to be a heel. there's no way you're gonna come into Illinois and not be heel because you love Aaron Rodgers. So yeah.
Wrestling in the Midwest, it's an old territory hotbed. There's tons of wrestling history there. What are the crowds like now in the Midwest, coming back and rebounding from COVID, even going deeper than wrestling? You're talking about the Bears-Packers rivalry. Does it fluctuate from city to city just like it does with the NFL sometimes? Like the crowds, do they hinge sometimes?
Okay, so I think it all, like, it just changes from the territory. So like, CSW is literally like pretty much north north of the city. So like, we have a lot of people, but we also have a lot of fan base. Um, and most of the fans that you usually see um at at CSW, maybe about a percentage of them you'll see at Northland Pro. You'll see them there, but there's also a different fan base over there as well. So it definitely varies. And with Northland being in Woodstock, which is like right next to Rockford in Wisconsin, it's it's a different area over there as well. Whereas places that I'm also working in, like I'll give you another one, Crash Tested Wrestling. It's it's in Indiana, so the fans are a lot different there too.
Nice.
Like it vary. All the fans vary, you know.
I hear that a lot, especially when guys go from the Midwest to that Philly region or all the way up into New England, and especially if you get down here into the South, that old Mid South, you know, Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett territories down into the Tennessees and Georgias and Floridas. Like every territory is always received wrestling differently, and I was curious if you see that in the smaller subsects of the Midwest.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I like another thing is I did a show in Detroit. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 2 years ago. I did a show there 2 years ago, and the crowd was just, it was really different. Um, it was really different. And then although like the venue was a little bit bigger than I expected, because it was kind of like uh, it was kind of like it was in a junkyard. If you look at it, it was like in a garage, and I mean, but it worked, and it was fun, and it was a good experience for me. But all the crowd varies, because sometimes it just all depends.
So over the summer, you got to do some great work at Northland Pro. You had a cool little program with Metalhead, having a chance to build this program involving an injury to your tag partner, and it lasted leading up to a grudge match in July. What was it like having a chance to build that kind of a program where you got to build on multiple levels of emotion throughout the summer?
You know what? It was really good because it was a different change of pace. Um, so a little bit of backstory. So it's funny because that partner of mine, we actually didn't work in Northland Pro. We actually worked at another promotion. It was called Powerhouse Wrestling, PWX, and they took that story and they ran with that, because the same person who does the commentary for Northland Pro is the same person that does the commentary for Powerhouse Wrestling. So they literally use that story, because we won, like at Powerhouse Wrestling, we did win the tag titles, and they used that as that his former tag team partner, and I was like, hey, that's not bad, like that's
Yeah.
a good storyline.
No,
It was fun.
nice. You also, on the side, do some streaming outside of your wrestling gig, man. What can the guys find you on your streaming? Where you're streaming at? Like, what kind of content are you doing over there?
So on my Twitch stream, I've been kind of like out of the loop, but I'm a gamer. Like I love just streaming video games just for the heck of it. Um, I'm trying to do that a lot more, just because I was able to, like, during the end of last year, I was able to acquire a PS5. So I'm actually,
One of the
very
lucky
excited
few.
about that. One of the lucky few. I was able to acquire a PS5. I'm very happy about that. And I also wound up getting WWE 2K23, and I also wound up getting NBA 2K23 as well. So I'm just, and I also got Madden as well. So it's like,
You got plenty to keep
um,
you busy right now.
I got plenty to keep me busy, but I usually also do PC games. I also do retro. Like I've been there. Sometimes there'll be a time where I'll binge playing Here Comes the Pain, or I will just binge something because I enjoy just in general video. I'm a gamer. I love playing video games when I have the time.
Absolutely. I feel like my big three in my life, the three hobbies were always wrestling, video games, and horror movies. And I feel like every grown man around our age, roughly the same age, I was an Attitude Era kid too, so I'm assuming we're kind of close. I feel like every grown man in our 30s has those few things that they're really passionate about. And it's
Yeah,
amazing.
I definitely get that. If we just, if we just replace horror movies with basketball, it'd probably be like the same thing. Because I will say this: I cannot say that I hate horror movies, but it's not my forte. Like, it's not a bad thing. I'll give you that one.
All right. Jay, I always close all of my interviews with 5 rapid fire questions, some having to do with wrestling, some not. I've got yours queued up and ready to go. You ready?
Yep, let's
What?
do it.
Because of the streaming, you didn't answer it, so I was glad about that. What's your favorite video game of all time? Any console? That's a
That's a
loaded
good one.
question.
If it had to be one, I'm gonna actually no. I'm gonna give you two. That's the only reason why, because these two are very dear to my heart. The first one is Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo.
Amazing game.
That will always forever be one of my favorite games. And because of the fact that I am a fighting game person, Street Fighter 2 will always be one of my all time favorite games in the world, and it has to be Super Turbo. So,
What is your favorite finisher that isn't yours?
ooh, let's see. If I had to choose my favorite finisher that's not mine, I probably have to go with the End of Days.
It's a popular one. I've had a couple guys tell me that was one of their favorites.
Yeah, if it's not the End of Days, it's Deep Six, because those things are though. Like, I may hate Baron Corbin, but the man has a nice move set.
When you look at him though, and I said the same thing about the Miz for a long time. I hated him, and then I was like, he's always been that heel though, so he's always done his job right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's getting paid.
That's
He's
the
getting
thing.
paid
People
for me
don't
to hate him.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Like, I've always hated the Miz.
Mm-hmm.
Always hated the Miz. But as I got older, I realized he's doing his job.
Yep.
Baron Corbin is
Doing
doing his
his
job.
job. Agreed. 1,000%. Who is your favorite musician or performing group?
Ooh, okay. So I will do. Let's see. That's actually a good one. You might have stumped me with this one, but I'll give you two from two genres that I love a lot. So when it comes down to hip hop, the all time great right now, past in hip hop right now, I'd always have to say I've always been a big Biggie fan. I've been a Notorious B.I.G. fan. Presently, I'm like really into Drake right now. When it comes down to like alternative, there's one group that I love right now, and that's Nonpoint. They're really good. Also Breaking Benjamin as well.
Never go wrong with those guys.
Never go wrong. And I can't forget Disturbed too, because I still every once in a while it's like a real, they give me a lot of energy, you know.
I always say Biggie over Pac. I've been listening to a lot of Kid Cudi.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in there.
that's not bad.
What is your favorite?
Top sleeper. Hold on, top sleeper artist Logic all day.
I've got Logic on my Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
I always
Top sleeper.
I make genre playlists, and it'll be the list of lists for hip hop or EDM or rock or metal. And what I'll do is I always build it up, and every year I restart the list at scratch, and I just start adding stuff that I like. And I've been on this Kid Cudi trip for the last probably week. What is your
See,
favorite?
that's
Oh, so
that's crazy because like I want to go back and listen to Kid Cudi. I just haven't. I kind of lost touch after Man on the Moon.
he did. I would say, call it the Kendrick Lamar phase, where he got really experimental with some of his music, and I was like,
Yeah,
okay, cool, but just not my cup of tea anymore. You know, Kendrick's
yeah,
last album was a lot like that for me. I thought Humble was genius, and then when the newest album came out, I was like, it's good. It's not my cup of tea. You know.
yeah. Of course.
What's your favorite movie?
Uh, ooh. If I had to pick my favorite movie, it'd probably be Happy Gilmore.
That's an amazing pick. For sure. I love a good
Like,
comedy, and you can't go wrong with an Adam Sandler comedy at that.
yeah. See, here's my thing. Like, so I'm big on movies in the '90s. Like, I love '90s movies in general. Like, if I had to, if that's the thing. Like, Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore, it's by far one of the best. And I also have a soft spot for Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. So those are big movies for me.
All right, the last one's kind of out of left field. Do you think pineapple belongs on pizza?
I actually have had pineapple on pizza, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well, this interview
Like,
is over. No. All right, Jay, this is my favorite
listen,
part.
wait, hold on. Let me explain this one to you. All right. So I used to before I was at the few jobs that I had as of right now, I used to work at a Domino's Pizza. So if you can kind of see where this is going, like there was one we have a if you guys don't know on the Domino's Pizza menu, they do have a Hawaiian pizza. So one day there was a person that didn't pick up their pizza. So if they don't pick up the pizza, it's pretty much mine. So I tried the pizza. It's not bad. Would I put it on my pizza? No, I wouldn't put it on my pizza.
Excellent.
But does it taste good? Does it taste good? It's an acquired taste. Let me just say that.
All right, Jay, this is my favorite part of every episode because I don't have to say anything. I tell you to plug your stuff, tell everybody what you've got coming up and what's going on, and tell them where to find you.
Okay, guys. So first and foremost, Will, thank you very much for having me on here. I appreciate it, man. For everyone that's out there in the world watching this, I hope you guys are like paying attention because I'm gonna let you know what's going on in the world of Jay Thunder. All right, so as you guys have already been told by Will, I do stream, and you guys can find me at twitch.tv/ I think it's / the Jay Thunder. You can also find me at Twitter. Same thing. At little at thing or whatever. Jay Thunder 2009. The J and the T is capitalized for that Twitter. Also, I do have a Facebook page that is for the Jay Thunder property. You guys can check that out as well. It is, facebook.com/ the Jay Thunder. So yeah. But I'm also getting ready to do another Northland Pro show. It will be October 1st. It will be in Woodstock, Illinois. The show starts at like 6 or 7 o'clock. For all you wonderful Illinoisans, Chicagoans, you guys are more than welcome to come to the show. And that's pretty much what's going on right now. I will try my best to be on Twitch as much as possible. To be quite honest with you, I'm actually happy that we were able to do this wonderful interview because like it feels good to be back in the saddle again.
Good. I'm glad to have you, man, and I appreciate you stopping by and chatting about some wrestling with me.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. That's all that like literally. I'm here to have the fun.
Excellent, man. Well, as we close another episode of Botched, and Share Shots, I want to take a minute and thank you for listening. Remind you to go wherever you do anything on the internet. Like, follow, subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe again. Leave a comment telling me how great I am or how terrible we sound. Either way, it helps the algorithm. It helps find new listeners. For the Southside Bruiser Jay Thunder, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.
Peace.